Hey everyone, before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my stories. My mom texted me out of the blue. "You're banned from Thanksgiving until you apologize, idiot." No phone call, no context, just that sharp little sentence lighting up my screen. I blinked then smiled. I shut my wallet on their holiday, closed the chapter on their drama, and made plans of my own. 3 days later, while they were carving turkey without me, the consequences of my pause hit hard. My unpaid bills piled up. My phone exploded with 87 missed calls. And that was only the beginning. Before I get into the whole story, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Have you ever felt like an outsider in your own family? When people imagine family, they think warmth, laughter, and a home you can always return to. For me, it was the opposite. Outwardly, we looked picture perfect. Matching sweaters around the holiday table, Dad slicing the turkey, Mom holding the serving spoon like it was a crown. But beneath those smiles ran a current I couldn't ignore. Favoritism, manipulation, and a deafening silence whenever I asked for even a shred of respect. I'm Madison Cole. I'm 27. The quiet one. The one who balanced bills, kept the lights on, and stayed invisible while everyone else thrived. I wasn't wealthy or flashy, but I had something no one else in my family seemed to: discipline. I could erase a late bill before the power company even noticed. When Dad had surgery last year, insurance barely covered anything. I stepped in, handled the extra costs, and suddenly I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was the family's safety net. The phone plan? On me. Internet? On me. Random co-pays? On me. Month after month they leaned harder, and I kept saying yes because I thought that's what love looked like. Meanwhile, my cousin Dylan, the golden boy, floated through life untouched. Every new bonus he boasted about, every night out, every perfect dinner post online, while I quietly covered the bills, groceries, and all the expenses they didn't want to admit. Mom celebrated Dylan's victories like they were hers, while I became the family accountant, the invisible enforcer. Sometimes I allowed myself small illusions of change, like when Mom baked apple pie and the scent filled the house, or Dad dozed off in front of the TV with football murmuring in the background. I'd glance at an old photo of us on the mantel, me in braces, Dylan grinning freely, and wonder if someday we'd share the table as equals. But deep down I knew the truth. Favoritism wasn't a mistake, it was a system. Every time Dylan needed money, I was expected to deliver. Every time I spoke up, I was told to calm down, stop overreacting. That was my role. Unseen, unheard, always paying the price. So when Mom's text arrived banning me from Thanksgiving, it didn't shock me. It was the final nail in a coffin they'd been building for years. It started in the group chat. Supposed to be a head count for Thanksgiving. Names scrolled down the screen like an invitation to a party I'd helped fund, and mine wasn't there. I typed, "Did you forget me?" The dots blinked a few moments before Dylan replied, "Limited seating. Try Christmas if you behave." My stomach sank, not because of him but because no one else objected. Mom stayed silent. Dad stayed silent. Aunts and uncles stayed silent, as if silence was agreement. I called Mom. The sounds of clinking dishes and laughter spilled through the speaker, like the party had started without me. "You're not invited until you apologize to Dylan for ruining his promotion dinner," she said flatly, as if reading from a rulebook. "Ruining?" I shot back. "You mean asking why he keeps borrowing rent money while bragging about his sales checks?" In the background, Uncle Ray's mocking voice cut in. "There she goes again. Budget cop." Laughter erupted around me. Everyone but me. Heat rose up my chest. "You want drama? Stop using my debit card on autopay," I said, steady but pointed. Silence followed. Somewhere on the other end, a door slammed like they thought I was bluffing. Then the call dropped. 10 minutes later, Aunt Patrice texted, "Don't make this about money. Family comes first." She even posted a photo of the table, candles glowing, everyone tagged but me. On Thanksgiving, my feed overflowed with turkey, pies, and captions like, "Best family ever." Then my phone buzzed again. "Mom, we saved you a plate, porch pickup." Like I was a delivery driver, not her daughter. Later I drove by. The foil-wrapped plate sat on the porch, a perfect symbol of everything they'd taken for granted. I sat out on the porch. A neighbor's cat nosed around the corner near the box I'd left deliberately. Black Friday morning, I tried to make the day feel normal. I went to the bakery for coffee and a bagel. Aunt Patrice happened to be there and waved me over like I was some problem to manage. She leaned toward the cashier and said, "She's sensitive about success. Keep the small talk short." The cashier's smile faltered. The woman behind me murmured, "Ouch." Suddenly the whole shop felt colder. I left without my bagel and stayed in my car until the heater cleared the fog from the windshield. That afternoon, Dylan called as if nothing had happened. "Front me $600 for my girlfriend's gift. I'll Venmo Friday," he said, then added, "And we'd all feel better if you just said sorry and stopped being difficult." I stayed silent. He filled it with, "Family takes care of each other." Sitting there, I finally saw the truth. Family didn't take care of each other. I took care of them. And the more I gave, the more invisible I became. That was when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. By Saturday, the turmoil inside me had crystallized into a decision. I sat at my kitchen table, my phone buzzing with unread messages, and opened my notes app. Line by line, I started writing everything down. Dates, amounts, reasons, tires for Dad's truck, meds after his surgery, the family phone plan no one else wanted to manage, the internet bill that always got paid somehow, groceries, co-pays, last-minute deposits before banks closed. Scrolling through months of transactions, my chest ached. None of it had been a one-time thing, even when they promised it would be. Every "just until next month" became permanent. Every emergency became mine. My yes had become their foundation. I typed a line at the top. "What they don't know is about to save me." The next morning I met Grace, my mentor from work, at a quiet cafe. Wooden chairs creaked under us, sunlight streaked across the table. I slid a cheap binder across to her, stuffed with printed receipts and screenshots. She flipped through it, page after page, calm at first until she reached the totals. Then she let out a slow, sharp breath. "You've been a safety net, not a daughter," she said softly. "Time to cut the net." "Walk me through it," I said. Step by step, she showed me how to revoke autopay, transfer accounts, and protect myself legally. None of it dramatic, clean, simple, precise. Once I decided I was done, I went home and opened my banking app. I moved through the checklist like stepping stones across a river. Revoke the mortgage autopay, remove my card from the electric company, port the phone plan to a prepaid account in my name. The bills that weren't mine slid back to where they belonged. By Sunday night, Dylan posted a story. His table piled with leftovers, captioned, "Real loyalty isn't about money." The comments were full of applause emojis. I muted him. My screen went silent for the first time in years. Monday afternoon, I was in the hardware store when I heard Uncle Ray's voice from the next aisle. "We've got her in line now. She'll come around." I kept walking, bought light bulbs, and slipped the receipt into my pocket. A small promise to myself. That evening, Mom left a voicemail that started calm and turned icy. "Since you won't apologize, skip Christmas too. And don't embarrass us with your loan spreadsheets." I listened twice, deleted it, and sat quietly in my apartment, realizing their silence no longer scared me. 2 days later, the frantic call came. Mom's voice cracked. "The mortgage didn't clear," she said, as if the world had tilted. I felt something settle inside me, like a stone dropping to the bottom of a lake. "I'll come by," I said. "And I'll bring the binder." The kitchen smelled of old coffee when I walked in. Blinds were half open, slicing light across the table where Mom sat with her hands folded, knuckles pale. Dad eased into a chair, his face gray around the mouth like he hadn't slept in days. I set the binder down between us. Its cheap plastic cover felt out of place on the wooden table where we had once eaten together. "This is private," I said, glancing toward the hallway. "No audience." Dad rubbed his forehead. "We all thought Dylan had been helping." His voice lowered, almost apologetic. I slid the binder toward him, turning it so the pages faced them. "He told you that because I was paying," I said. "Here are the transfers. Every single one went from my account straight to your mortgage company." Mom's hand shook as she flipped through the pages. Grocery receipts, utility bills, prescriptions, the phone plan, internet, credit card payments, 3 full years of line items, 3 years of me. "You banned me from Thanksgiving until I apologized," I said quietly. "So I stopped paying for the holiday you enjoyed without me. And I'm done funding the parts of myself you're embarrassed by." The front door opened. Dylan walked in like he owned the place. He froze when he saw the binder. The smirk slipped from his face. "You're really doing this?" he asked, his tone sharp, as if my decision were a personal attack. I pulled a clear sleeve from the binder and slid it across the table. His texts were highlighted in yellow, the dates, the Venmo Fridays, the weeks that stretched into months, the money that never returned. He scanned them, jaw tight, words failing him. "You can call it betrayal," I said, voice steady. "But it's a boundary." Mom's lips parted, but no sound came. Dad's eyes filled as he stared at the totals on the last page. "We didn't know," he said again, as if repeating it could make it true. "You didn't want to know. It was easier to pretend Dylan was your success story," I said, "and that I was just difficult." Dylan snapped. "You can't just leave them like this." I let out a quiet, tired laugh. "I'm leaving them like adults, which you also are." His mouth opened, then closed. He looked away first. "I'm not asking for anything back," I added, tapping the binder once. "I'm done. From now on, you handle your own bills." I had left notes detailing which accounts to call, how to set up autopay. "I'm not your bank." Silence settled. The refrigerator hummed. A car drove past outside. Finally, Dad's voice broke through, fragile. "What about Christmas?" I met his eyes. "I'll see how I feel." And for the first time, I meant it in a way I had never allowed myself with this family. I tucked the binder under my arm and walked out. The afternoon was bright, sharp, and oddly clean. Each step to my car felt like a door closing behind me. Driving home, I stopped at a red light. Fear rushed in. What if they cut me off completely? What if no one called again? The green arrow lit and I turned. In that moment, I realized I had been living in fear of their silence for years. Maybe silence was exactly what I needed. By week's end, the family group chat flickered with awkward messages about reorganizing bills, followed by strings of emojis and no volunteers. Someone typed "Dan," and he replied with a single eye roll. Then the chat went silent. Aunt Patrice posted a quote about humility on Facebook, and for the first time in years no one tagged me. Dylan's weekend photo dump shrank. No more fancy dinners, just board games under dim lights. Mom sent a casserole recipe as if nothing had happened. I didn't reply. 2 days later, another text arrived. "I didn't realize how much you did. We'll figure it out." I read it twice, set the phone down. That night, I made tea in my quiet kitchen and balanced my own budget. The numbers looked simple when they belonged only to me. Sometimes their voices still echoed. "Dad, what about Christmas?" "Dylan, you can't just leave them like this." But I would remember the binder, the porch plate of turkey, the way Mom had typed "idiot" in a text like I wasn't her daughter. And the echoes faded. One evening the phone buzzed. "Dylan, I didn't know." "I'm sorry." I stood under a streetlight, reading it twice. I didn't reply. Not yet. This wasn't about one apology, it was about years of being invisible until my money showed up. A week later at the bakery, the same cashier looked up and smiled. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Everything bagel, toasted cream cheese," I said. Just like anyone else ordering breakfast on a regular day. Outside, I bit into the warm bagel. For the first time in a long time, it tasted like something simple that didn't owe me anything. That was the real showdown. Not at the kitchen table, not in the binder, but in the quiet proof that I could walk away and still be whole. The following weeks felt strange, like entering a room that had always been loud and finding it finally quiet. For the first time, my paycheck was mine. I paid rent, car insurance, stocked my fridge, and still had enough to breathe. Their absence felt like fresh air. Dad called one afternoon, voice softer than I'd ever heard. "We set up the autopay," he said. Then, after a pause, "I'm sorry for making you feel like a purse." Raw, unpracticed words. They didn't fix everything, but they mattered. Mom tried in smaller ways. She invited me to dinner with no conditions. No holidays, no obligations, just pasta at the kitchen table. No full apology, but the hug at the door lingered a second longer than usual, and that silence said more than words. Dylan stayed quiet. Maybe his silence was the most honest thing he'd ever given me. I kept the binder on my shelf, not as a threat, but as a reminder of what I survived and the choices I made instead. I don't know what next Thanksgiving will look like. Maybe I'll sit at the table. Maybe I'll take a trip and drink cocoa from a paper cup. What I know for sure is I won't buy my seat with silence or money. For once, their silence didn't hurt me. It freed me. Family isn't measured by how much you pay to keep your place at the table. Real love doesn't demand silence or sacrifice. It respects boundaries even when they sting. I spent years believing my worth was tied to receipts and autopay. But the truth is simpler. I'm not their bank. I'm their daughter. And I get to decide what that means. If this story hit close to home, share your experience in the comments. Have you ever had to draw a line with family? Your voice matters. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next story.